Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5 Keys to Becoming a Rockstar Relationship Coach. I'm Alina Frank. I'm the director of the EFT Relationship Coach Certification Program. I'm happily married to the love of my life, and I live on an island near Seattle, Washington. I really feel like at age 57 next week, that I'm really living my best life, but it always wasn't that way. No, I really struggled for many years in a let's say less than optimal sexless marriage for 17 years. And I was trying to make my little coaching practice more than just a hobby. And all that changed when I got serious about healing the baggage that led me to marry the wrong person in the first place. And like right after that, soon after that, within months, I was able to attract my ideal partner, and we've been married for 12 years now. So I know that on the other side of really big fears and challenges is an opportunity for the biggest reward. And I feel like I'm a living example of that. So I decided to specialize in sex and intimacy, and then I moved over sort of laterally over to attracting your ideal partner, and then did work with couples. And since then, I've worked with over 7,000 clients, been a presenter in hundreds of online summits, have been the contributing author of 8 books, and wrote my own best-selling book on sex and intimacy. And I had a 9-month waitlist practice that I had to leave, but more on that later. I want to get into why you're here. And so this is what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to talk about why it's important to have a big why, my definition of a rock star coach, talk a little bit about the numbers here and the 5 keys. And of course, my little pitch at the end here for what I am offering. So, my definition of a rock star relationship coach is really being able to succeed in helping your clients first and foremost. And how you help them succeed really is a matter of finding the goal that they want to achieve and having them set that goal artfully, skillfully with your assistance. And also being a completely impartial, non judgmental coach, avoiding bias, having tools that the clients can use for life that are really empowering, and having a skill set that allows the unconscious connections to come to light for the client, for you to use then to heal. All right, let's talk about the big why. One of the most important attributes that you can cultivate to see your business grow, the thing that will leave you inspired day in and day out in your business, is to remind yourself why you're here. And there's a saying in coaching, which is the bigger the why, the easier the how. So this graph shows just how much we need good, qualified professionals. There's no reason to think that in 1960, right, where the divorce rate was only 12%, meaning like 88% of the population was happily married. No, I don't think so. We all know that it was due to the lack of choices and the lack of freedoms that we have today. But there's got to be a better way to curb this trend. And some people need help to work on resolving conditioning and relational traumas, those things that happen in childhood that prevent them from making really good choices and attracting optimal romantic partners to begin with. So when my one of my business partners, Julie Vinnick, and I developed the Learning to Find Love program, our really big why was just that. We would sit and imagine how many happily ever married couples, we envisioned coming through the program, single women, single men, finishing the program. And as a result, having children that were raised in the most loving families, and how that in turn would have little girls and little boys see role models of loving couples that then they would then become the head of families and households that would in turn model that for their children. So find your biggest why, and you will remain inspired to do the work of building your business and committing to your personal work as well. Again, here's another fascinating graph. There are certainly times when radical and immediate separation and divorce are truly the only solution, right? Like we know this, domestic violence, abuse, but that's not what I'm talking about. Overcoming family of origin wounds can set someone up to succeed, and they're less likely to be a victim to trauma bonds. For example, when you have a client, let's call her Mary, who married a man who was emotionally unavailable to her, just like her father, and her husband, let's call him John, married her because of the unconscious wound of being unable to help his family and his single mom financially as a child. So Mary and John were stuck in a spiral of fighting, shutting each other out without really knowing what was playing out. And that was an old trauma pattern from childhood. So the beauty of using tools like the one that I'm partial to, which is EFT tapping, helped this particular client, which were clients in my practice, help them to make those cognitive shifts and be able to reflect where this was coming from without me having to tell them myself or give any kind of advice. And that is incredibly empowering. So let's talk about what's out there in terms of help for couples and singles and people that are having in sort of challenges around sex and intimacy. Couples therapists have the lowest rate of success of any other form of counseling. And yeah, there are studies that show that it is better than no counseling at all, but only about 40% of the couples that are seeking counseling end up resolving their challenges. So most couples work involves conscious communication skills. So you say this to me and I will respond in this way. Now, the problem with that is that it fails to get to the root of the problem. If I get triggered constantly when my husband doesn't put up the toilet seat, or doesn't put down the toilet seat rather, my unconscious mind might be making right the link to my belief system that says I'm not important enough to be listened to. And where does that come from? That comes from my father ignoring me in childhood, the usual absentee father, not showing up at my school plays, etc. I'm going to have those triggers. I'm still going to have those triggers. So when we're asking someone to then reflect and say something like, oh, okay, he's saying that to me, and the accurate response for me in this situation is to say, honey, if you leave the toilet seat up, the story I tell myself is that you don't care about me, or other strategies, right? We have all kinds of strategies and communication strategies and ways to do this that we can teach ourselves. But if most of the blood drains from our frontal cortex, that part of our brain that's responsible for critical thinking and assessing a situation, when the blood drains from that area during times of stress, then I'm not going to be able to say anything like that. I am virtually incapable. I've been emotionally hijacked and I can't. And so why not get rid of those triggers completely? And so It won't bother me anymore. It won't. And as a result, and I've seen this, I saw this with my ex-husband. One of the things that used to drive me crazy about about my ex was we live on an island, and we kind of live and die by the ferry system. And he was constantly late. And in my family of origin, if you were, what's that saying? If you're 10 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you are later than that, then it's unforgivable. Like, that's the household that I grew up in. And so that used to drive me insane that he was always late. So what did I do? I worked on that trigger. I found the source of where it came from. I really would then, from then on out, after I'd healed that, I would just get in the car and I'd calmly, really with no emotional attachment at all, I'd say something like, when we get to your friend's wedding, and we're an hour and a half late, I would just like for you to explain what happened. And that's it. And lo and behold, what would happen? He actually stopped doing it. So when we know this, right? As coaches, we know this. When we change, the people around us respond differently, and they can actually change. All right, so let's get into the 5 keys. So key number 1 is priority is to keep your clients safe at all times. Ask yourself if you have enough trauma training to be able to call yourself a trauma-informed coach. Most coaches do not receive enough training in this. 2 is, meet the goal, like I said, and there is a real art to being able to create an achievable goal, to manage the client's expectations, to see how they have these little wins. They feel excited. They will come back again and again. You've met the target, and they paid you good money to reach a certain goal, and together you've been able to achieve that, and you've been able to prove that it's working. 3 is to have some solid information that you can refer clients to access. And this helps with the perception of being non-judgmental when it's not coming from you, when it doesn't appear that you're giving them advice, because really there's nothing that will get you into a sticky situation faster than giving advice. So, coaches and therapists telling clients to dump their partners, to stay in a marriage, to push them to have sex before they feel safe, then this material that you find, it really, your ideas about it, your flavor and your take on it then can be the material that you use for lectures, webinars, video content marketing, being interviewed on podcasts, writing articles, etc. So some of the resources that I like the Gottman Institute research that you can find easily online. I like the book She Comes First. And I really like the webinar series called Dating After Relational Trauma. And so key number 4 is really using cutting edge tools that are very effective, that get to the heart of the problem, like EFT tapping. And number 5, this came from a dear mentor that I had when I first started. And he would say, be that clear pane of glass. And I really didn't understand what he was talking about until I had been mentoring with him for a few months, and I realized that he was leading by example. And what that means is, that phrase, being a clear pane of glass, is that you need to constantly work on yourself and do not have anything that they can project onto, or that there's no transference or counter transference going on. You are there for them, meeting their needs, working safely with them, getting them to a place where they feel they've really had some transformation, and it's not about you at all. So ask yourself, have you worked sufficiently enough on your sex and intimacy challenges? Have you found your ideal romantic partner? Are you in a happily coupled relationship or in a relationship that serves you. I'm not saying that the monogamous closed relationship is the only model, but are you happy in the relationships that you have? And if not, go work on it. So additionally, I'd say that a really good thing to have is to like cover all the bases, right? So imagine that a client comes in because she's having relationship challenges. So you help her sort that out, and she decides to end her relationship because it truly was a going nowhere relationship that she's discovered in the process of doing the healing work with you. She's come up with that idea. This is going nowhere. I really need to end it. You work with her to release the fears that were stopping her from ending it before. A few months later, she wants to work on preparing for dating. And through the work that you do, she realizes that she's actually never attracted a partner who she was physically attracted to. They were all kind of safe men. In other words, yeah, she really didn't have any kind of physical chemistry with them. So she continues to work with you on the issues related to the root of that, which were around sexual injury. So she heals those sexual injury wounds, finds the love of her life, invites you to the wedding. And this scenario has been repeated over my nearly 20 years in this business hundreds of times. And it still makes me really smile. I think of those people and pictures come to mind of like their weddings and their babies. And I feel really good about the change and transformation that I assisted and guided them with. So, my husband and I, we are master trainers of EFT, and we are trainers of another energy psychology technique called matrix reimprinting. And we sort of have the reputation out there among our colleagues that we are the safe and effective trainers. So we appreciate that. I think that we just were lucky enough to really do a lot of educating of ourselves about trauma. 15 years ago, we met someone, got into a deep friendship with someone who I think is the most brilliant somatic trauma educator that I've ever met. She really just gave us a whole download and spent months, really teaching us the fine art of keeping clients safe while really doing effective work. And that's really been our motto. So we get a lot of people calling and just complaining and saying, please find me a safe coach. This is what happened to me, horror stories. So here are the most common ones that we hear. So and they're not telling you that, they're just not returning. They're coming up with reasons why they don't have the money or the time, or suddenly, they don't show up for appointments. So these are the most common ones. Don't be that coach telling a client that they should end a relationship or that they need to get a divorce and move on, unless you see that there are like real signs of domestic abuse and things like that. Don't be that coach or therapist that is sharing your personal history. There are exceptions to this for sure, but I will tell you that more people complain about having heard that kind of like, oh yeah, let me tell you about what happened to me. Don't leave clients dysregulated and feeling just off on the verge of flooding or abreacting. You need to know what the signs are that are leading to that and be able to stop it. Don't enter a dual relationship. This sounds so simple, but I've heard of coaches that haven't done their own work and then are actively seeking a romantic relationship with their partner, or they're setting up their clients with their friends, or my cousin Joey, and no, you should not do that. And don't tell a client that they are resisting or that they're playing the victim. There's no place in that kind of that's so judgmental. And what it is a failure of you as the coach being able to provide enough healing for the client to be able to see those places where they're resisting or they're playing a victim, and they come up with that on their own. So I am also certified as a holistic marketer, and I really feel like I need to give my 2 cents here on marketing these days. I've helped a lot of practitioners and coaches with growing their online businesses, and I wanted to kind of share with you like what I see out there, the difference between a quote unquote influencer and having a global online heart-centered coaching practice that grows and is sustainable year after year after year. There have been a number of relationship influencers in the past year, especially like I saw like 3 couples that were sort of minor celebrities, but they were well known in that space. One couple I know very well, and they all had like these seemingly meteoric rise in social media followers and how many contracts they had, but their romantic relationships were just a house of cards. I saw them crash and burn. The ones that I know personally, they lost nearly everything. And I do have a lot of empathy for what they went through. I really wish them well. But that's not who I want to work with, or I don't want to collaborate with those kinds of people, because an influencer is someone who is spending a lot of time getting just the right photo and getting the right look, and everything has to be perfect when in fact it's not. That's not what I advocate for. My favorite Albert Einstein quote is, try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value. And when you work, even just starting to work on your fears of putting yourself out there, working on getting out of your comfort zone, providing value, seeing yourself as deserving, you will naturally and organically thrive financially. And you will build a strong word of mouth referral system in the process. All right. We can't really talk about romantic relationship without having some sort of discussion about trauma, and especially childhood traumas. And so I'm hoping that this isn't anything new to you when I say that it's important to understand ACEs. So the ACEs score is a scoring system. ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And it's a way of easily and quickly scoring a scoring system for childhood traumas, the number of childhood traumas that someone has had. I also think that you really can't be in this space without understanding attachment styles. And attachment styles are absolutely affected by childhood traumas. So if you look at this grid here, anxiety is shown as low or high anxiety, which helps identify whether a person is comfortable being alone or not. An individual who has secure attachment is someone who has low anxiety and low avoidance. Like securely attached people tend to be more satisfied with their relationships. They're confident, they are independent, but they're comfortable being intimate. And when they reach a stress point, they are also comfortable seeking out support from their partner and from others. And as a result, the partnership and the partner relationship really deepens. So unlike a securely attached individual or couples, we see that on the other end is anxiously attached individuals who have high anxiety and low avoidance. Anxiously attached individuals are quite the opposite of securely attached individuals. That they appear to their partners as being very clingy, quite demanding when it comes to They really want a high degree of closeness, attention, and approval from their partners. And because of these actions, and because of their childhood traumas, in fact, they have low self-worth. When these individuals are distressed, they're heavily reliant on others for support. And so, yeah, their confidence and their self-worth really is tied into their partner's responsiveness and attention level. Now, take someone who is anxiously attached, and when they're faced with loss and rejection, they usually are quite quick to find out the source of the loss and rejection, being demanding, dominating, overly disclosing, and that sort of thing. When you have one person in the relationship who is securely attached and understands what's happening in the relationship and the other person's attachment style, they can actually help heal someone who is, let's say, anxiously attached. So high ACE scores, insecure attachment, complex developmental trauma will lead to things like risky and adverse sexual practices, like sexual baggage that can impact marital stability. Some of this will absolutely be outside of your scope of practice unless you're a licensed mental health care professional, as well as a relationship coach, or if working on relationships is your specialty within your therapy practice. But you really do, whether you're licensed or not, you really do need to know the difference and be able to refer when necessary. It's all about being effective and safe. And even if you don't end up working with someone or referring them out, they will have a lot of respect for you because you were able to see that the best outcome would be with someone else and not you. All right, so here's my little pitch. I start going back to the beginning of this presentation. I said I had a 9-month waitlist practice. I had to close it because I had to make the decision whether to drop my mentoring and training or continue to work with private clients. And what happened was I went and looked at who was out there that I could refer potential clients to. I realized that there just weren't enough quality relationship coaches in the EFT or the energy psychology field. So I launched this program 3 years ago. So part of the program is 6 group monthly sessions, 6 individual mentoring sessions. You're asked to choose an area of personal growth as well as an area that you want to specialize in. So healing happens during this program for yourself as well. You get a goal setting course that you can learn from how to skillfully create goals that you can achieve. You are able to license 2 programs. One is called Path to Passion, which helps with intimacy and sex injury challenges. And the other program is When to End It. You get all the material, you get all the slides, you get the transcripts. You can actually teach it as your own work, or you can have a portal that will send your clients to access the material without any additional fee. You get EFT levels 1 and 2 plus tapping out of trauma training. There's so much more that I really can't cover it all. But if this has piqued your curiosity and you're interested, then I would love to have a 30-minute free phone call, no obligation call with you. Just go over to EFTrelationshipcoach.com. And yeah, there's just a lot to cover. I'd rather just go over it with you in a phone call. But I want to thank you, and I hope that I've given you some food for thought on how to grow your business, how to succeed, how to have the type of referral business where you just keep getting more and more kudos and acknowledgement and recognition because you have stayed clear of those, sticky situations. You've provided really good material for your clients and you've helped them to achieve their goals. So thank you all very much. It was lovely to see you. And you'll get the recording of this. I'll send that out later today.